Response video to a My Misery and Me video. I don't think I'll make a habit out of this because I don't really like it. Obviously Jay's been through his stuff. He's on medication, whatever. I don't know what the deal is. I don't know if it's a shtick of some kind, a little routine, a game, I don't know. But this, just for context, this guy used to talk about the truth as being something that people should have a deep passion for, be really emotional about. And all of a sudden now he's saying, no, our intellect should just serve our desire, and the truth is quite irrelevant to that service, apparently. I don't know. It seems that's what he's saying. So anyway, but I just thought it was, it's a valid subject, this idea of what we are, whether we're an animal or whether we're a mind capable of logic and understanding the game and understanding better goals than the short-term goals. I mean, as an animal, most animals live for the short term. They have no long-term vision. They live very immediately. Viscerally, what's right now. And that's the first thing we do as humans, is start to realize that we can plan for a month from now, or a year from now, or 10 years from now. We can store wheat for the winter, or store this for that, and find we can understand that the game is longer than a week or a day, that we live a lifetime. And that understanding changes our behavior. And so we're not driven by the feeling anymore. The feeling might be, I want to eat the blueberries today. But the mind will tell the feeling to shut up, because we're going to store these blueberries for the winter when we're going to be very hungry. That kind of thing. And so there is no emotional driver. Emotion is the gasoline. Emotion is the energy. It's the engine running. The brain puts the car in gear and has the steering wheel. And so so the brain is logic. And so I was thinking about logic, and I was thinking, I've mentioned this before, but I think I'm just going to try to focus discussions and always try to be cognizant of the idea of properties and categories. Properties is a good way to understand what something is. So these are the things that you qualify something as, having properties. And categories are, these things that they can be quite abstract. They can be a lot of different things. And once you put something in a category, it's in a category, a collection of things. That's what a category is. It's a collection of like things. And you label that collection as all having similar properties. And once you put something in a category, then that being in that category is one of the properties the thing has, as being in the category. So you could take a word like efficient, and you could say that's in the category of good, reasonable, sensible, can't go wrong. Strive for that. Good goal. It could be in the good goal category. That it's just a basic functionality. You want to be in the functional category, you're going to have to be in the efficient category. You're going to have efficiency as a property. So you're going to have to be in the category, and then the category is one of your properties, being in that category. And so I'm just saying, just giving you an example that this works for everything. Everything's about categories, and it's about the fact that being in a collection, being associated with something else, is what defines everything. And there's the category of good, bad, efficient, productive, destructive. These are all categories, negative, positive, and things get placed in these categories based on their properties. And that all these properties can be pretty well defined. We can use words to define words. And so we're all basically just saying is that you can define its properties by just finding the words that it's associated with and connecting it through the sameness of those properties. Anyway, so that's enough of an overview, I suppose. So I'll start here. About 2 minutes is where it gets a little weird, so we'll play this part.
To do, no way to go. So, so it'll ask questions like, what's the point of life? There's no meaning, there's no purpose. Reason by itself has no function, no purpose.
Right, so I've said this before, that intelligence has no function without a problem to solve. It's only, that's its function. Its function is to resolve a problem. That's what makes it do something, is because something needs to be done. And to be needed to be done, it means effectively the word need is connected to the word problem. There's got to be something not as good as it could be, imperfect, for there to be a need for a resolution or a need to acquire perfection, an uncompleteness of some kind. So you can use lots of other words to describe this concept of a problem that needs resolution through the process what intelligence provides you the capacity to resolve. It gives you solution to problems. It gives you efficiency in your solution to problems. It gives you expedience, practicality, lots of words to describe the quality of a solution. I could fix something, I could fix a hungry cat. I could go outside and I could fix it with a hammer. Right? It's fixable that way. Is that the most efficient way to fix the problem? Or maybe the cat food can. So, there's lots of ways to resolve a problem. And there's ways that are fit into category of more or less efficient based on what we've declared to be the value. And so certainly humans do argue over value, but I think we can have the basic idea is the one that creates the least friction, the one that creates the least amount of ouch, 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 and the most ooh, ooh, ooh. Yeah. Not too complicated so far.
The reason which we have is actually subservient to our emotion.
Subservient to emotion doesn't say anything, okay? Emotion's in the category of a brain function. But emotion describes a lot of things. Desire is an emotion. Guilt is an emotion. Lust would be the emotion, maybe. Love. There's lots of different kinds of emotions. And some of them are very crude, very visceral. And some of them are more complex and take a while to eat at you or nag at you a little bit at a time. Some are big bites and some are little bites. So to say our capacity, our intellect, our reasoning capacity, our logic is subservient to emotion is effectively saying nothing. Okay, because it's obviously not in service to every impulse, every feeling, every sensation. We every single day, can figure out that, okay, I have a pang of hunger, but I know I'll eat lunch in an hour. I don't eat lunch personally, but you know what I mean. And so we obviously just put that off. There's no problem. We just say, okay, I felt it, I dealt with it, okay, I know about it, and I'll resolve it later. And it's put off. So we completely can control the urgency of what we feel, completely, we can orchestrate it. To say it's serving when it's basically, your mind can create fantasies, and it can choose to create different kinds of images, and it's certainly going to, your desired end, what you want out of something, is certainly going to affect the texture of it, the character of it. But there's lots of liberality in terms of orchestrating it. And just as we can orchestrate a fantasy, we can orchestrate reality.
So what's in the driver's seat is always going to be emotion, the emotional need or desire to survive, to live, to...
Or whatever that all means too. The desire to survive is not manifested as a desire to survive. So that's, the desire to survive is a fallacy. There's no such thing really. We have desires to achieve, we have hunger, we have an apprehension to deal with suffering and pain and misery and the loss of our life. But it's not quite the same thing as saying a desire to survive. So, if you're going to make an argument about reason and emotion, your language needs to be a lot more precise than this.
Hope, to look towards the future, to keep on living and, to keep on existing is always going to be in the driver's seat, and reason is...
Yeah, whatever. So he's almost like saying that that we can't see any further down the road. So he's almost saying that we can't see 10 years down the road, or 5 years down the road, or even a year down the road. He's saying that we can only we can only deal with emotion, which is only very immediate and circumstantial and transitional and temporary in many cases. It's what I have today. Some days you're more vulnerable than other days. Some days you're hungrier than you are other days. Some days you're hornier than you are other days. And we already are quite aware of that. So in the context of playing our life game every day, we have understanding that there's things that we'll take care of today, there's things that we'll take care of this week, there's things that we'll take care of this month, there's things that we'll take care of this year. But none of this emotion isn't driving. Obviously our brain is organizing our needs and our wants and our desires, and we have many competing ones, completely contrary ones. And our intellect is vital in making the decision in terms of which one gets weighted heavier. Is through a logical process. We measure the categories. Which one is decidedly more in the good category than the other. So, again, this is a weak argument.
Simply something that's tacked on to the emotional will, impetus to survive, to live. Reason is tacked onto it, and reason serves the function to live, right? I mean, that's...
Well, whatever. The fact that we have a big brain and all that stuff is an evolutionary fact, but obviously in the time it was invented, when it was invented, we weren't doing anything very complex. And obviously it was just a scheming tool. And again, quite obviously, we've, through understanding, through recognizing properties and categories, recognizing properties like efficiency, we've been able to understand that the war is bad, that the slavery is bad, that the subjugation of women is bad. Lots of things we've been able to put in the bad category and say we're not going to do that anymore. We're going to create systems that don't make that the function. We're going to change the function. We're going to change the goal of the game. You can't play the game that way anymore. Alright? We're not going to change it because we emotionally need to change it, because we desire the change in this sense. We're going to change it because we understand the change is necessary. And it's the necessity and the devotion to the truth. The truth that compels us. It's a love of truth. It's a motion devoted to truth, seeking it and honoring it, that compels us. So to say it's an emotion means nothing, because it's an emotion that is on a completely different level than any emotion, okay, some caveman could feel. He couldn't do it because he didn't have the categories. We have the category of truth, and we can honor it emotionally, be devoted to it, in love with it.
It's basically evolution there. Reason is there to aid our emotional need.
Well, the argument from the DNA molecule is another fallacy. It has absolutely no credibility as a source of rightness or correct behavior. You don't ask the DNA molecule whether you should do anything. It's a silly thing to ask. It's a dumb molecule. Why the hell would you ask a dumb molecule that took 4 billion years to put a woman's anus 3 inches from her vagina? Obviously it's not brilliant. It's not terribly smart. And so, yeah, you don't ask it any important questions. But you used to know that. But apparently you misplaced that somewhere in all the clutter. So anyway, so let's move on to the end.
Of life is to cause us to divorce reason from emotion, and reason without emotion is always going to, it's not going to give you an answer that is suited to what life is.
Yeah. Suited to what life is. So again, he's making this argument from nature, and that somehow if we don't respect the lizard and the monkey, that somehow we're not honoring the best of us. The best of ourselves is somehow the lizard and the monkey. The truth-loving, honor understanding, efficiency understanding, productivity understanding, practicality understanding, risk understanding, the future seeing, human. That we should call rubbish. That we should make slave to an ape and a lizard. That's your argument? Like we haven't heard that before? Like you haven't heard that before? And you're waiting till now to say, oh yeah, I like that argument. The argument from Antikantavad. Yeah, I like that all along. Sorry, I don't know what to say to you. Go watch your old videos. You took them all down or something, right? I mean, you're not leaving your old videos up where you're making a mockery of the person you've become, are you? Sorry, this is just silly.
Life is about living emotionally and rationally. As a human being, your life is about being an emotional creature, and you have a rational mind, and use that rational mind to live life in, to basically satisfy your needs and desires.
There you go. So you don't use the rational mind to recognize goals, to define your goals. You just use your rational mind as a scheming device to satisfy the goals established by your nature. And again, that's just saying, I want to be an ape. I want to be a lizard. Why don't you go all the way back and just be an amoeba?
And some of those needs and desires may be looking after other sentient beings as well. So, I don't think the question, is there a rational justification for life? I don't think that question essentially, I don't think that's an applicable question.
I suppose you're being silly. All questions that involve value exchanges, that have risk associated with them, that have capacity to cause harm, all questions, all things that have the capacity to affect the welfare of a sentient organism require justification. All of them. There's no exemptions. There's no free ride. You just say, I don't have to account. No, every single time you start the engine and you get behind the wheel, you have to show your license. You have to demonstrate the car works. You have to prove it. You can't just sit there and tell somebody, I'm going to put something in jeopardy for no good reason, without justification. You can't do that. You can't. If you're not serving a free lunch, you have to account for how it was paid for.
To sentient life, because sentient life is not simply a rational thing. It's fundamentally an emotionally driven process. And
well, whatever. It's irrelevant. Sentient life, most sentient life is ignorant and stupid. I'm neither of those things. So I'm not taking your advice that I should behave as if I am, or that I should somehow orient my brain to think that somehow the dumbest parts of me are the smartest parts of me. That would be idiotic. The category idiotic. I would become an idiot. I would have the property of idiot.
Reason is simply there to aid that. And
whatever. Why we have it, again, has nothing. Its origins have nothing to do with its capacity and nothing to do with utility and function. And certainly nothing to do with how much respect we should give to the logical conclusions that can be drawn using the faculty. Now, I might be able to accept this argument if every logical conclusion that's reasonable to draw says that our natural desires are excessive, dangerous, compulsive, reckless. Lots of words that have that risk component, the one that requires the justification. So there's much to what we want that can involve an inappropriate taking. Much of what we want can involve taking, and therefore it has to be justified.
this is why I'm saying let's make life better. But we don't need to justify.
Well, better than what? Oh, let's have, instead of a complete Holocaust, let's knock it down by 1%. Yeah, that's good enough. A 99% failure is just so much better than 100% failure that how can no one see how great that is? Yeah. So anyway, good luck with that wishy-washy, mishy-mushy crap. But yeah, we've already heard this all before, the redeemingness of the human race. And as I've pointed out in previous videos, even Jesus couldn't pull it off. Even Jesus couldn't be Jesus. So you're not going to do it. It ain't going to happen. And all you're doing is sentencing more sentient life to more horror by defending and providing a fake justification of, you don't need no justifications for the perpetrators. You just you're just handing the criminals the club. So sorry. Bad behavior goes in the bad behavior category. Bad behavior. Stupid and irrational gibberish. The DNA knows what it's doing. Nonsense. Nonsense category. So, yeah, it's not much I can say. Like I said, I'm going to try to not watch your videos because they're just going to cause me grief, and who needs it? I'll wait until I've had enough distance to perceive you as the idiot you're talking like, and so when I'm ready to do that, maybe I'll watch. But I'm really not ready to perceive you to be an imbecile. But apparently that's what you want. So who am I to deny you your splendor in putting your head up your ass? Anyway, pathetic. You're in the pathetic category.